Good morning, Harvest. How you doing? Is everyone tired? It's been a long weekend for everybody, huh? It's good to see you guys this morning. If you would believe it, this stage and room and building looked completely different yesterday and today. Was anyone there this weekend? Yeah, a few people. Are you surprised with with how little you see? So if you notice, there's some little, I call them tech droppings from the event yesterday. But we had the Kiss Cancer Goodbye event here, which was very exciting and large and long, but it was awesome. It was really fun. So forgive the event droppings that are around. We're gonna get everything back to normal around here pretty soon. But we got it ready for church, and we're so excited to worship with you guys this morning. Oh, check. If you are new to Harvest, sorry. My name is KK. I'm the Life Enrichment Coordinator here. Pastor Dan is on his way back from the trip celebrating his mom this morning. So he probably won't make it to church, but he'll be back this tomorrow, or sometime today. So he'll be back definitely next week. But here at Harvest, if you're new here, we're so happy to have you. We believe that clarity is kindness. And so I just want to make sure you are aware that no matter where you have been, where you come from, what you believe, how you feel about divinity or church or whatever the case may be, you're welcome in this space today. There is a space for you, and we will meet you right where you are, and there's no bait and switch. There's no, we want you to think or do or believe a certain way. We want you to follow whatever your journey looks like, and we're just here to support you through it. So I hope that is as clear as I can be. We love you. We're excited to have you here. Let's stand up. Let's worship together. We worship the God who Y'all feel
Love you, Lord, for your mercy never fails me.
Some things can't capture. Oh, I was dead, alive. You taught my heart to beat again. Everything felt lifeless. goodness of God that we just talked about was always chasing after you. Let's sit in that goodness. From the ashes you make beautiful things. I know 'cause you did it in me. On your better now for it. The ashes you make beautiful things. I know 'cause you did it in me. From the ashes you make beautiful things. I know 'cause you did it in me. One more time. From the ashes you make beautiful things. I know 'cause you did it in me. God, we thank you for your presence in this place. We thank you that through whatever feels like ashes in our life right now, you are making beautiful things. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for what you're doing, what you've done. I thank you. I can't thank you enough for Harvest. And I normally don't pray publicly because it feels weird to me, honestly, but I felt like it was necessary. So thank you. Thank you for this church family. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You guys can be seated. Welcome someone to Harvest. No, first welcome someone to Harvest, then be seated. Well, good morning, church. Thank you guys for being here. I know it's been a weird week. Well, at least for me, it's been a weird week, so I don't know if that's been your experience, but we're excited to be here. Again, my name is KK. For anyone who is new here, welcome to Harvest. I hope that you've already felt the love and acceptance of this community and just God, honestly, whatever that looks like for you. I hope that you felt that today. I wanted to welcome new people, obviously, with our welcome card. There should be one in the back seat. I put those in there this morning. I forgot about it till as soon as I got here. There should be some welcome cards in the back seat. But honestly, if you don't have one, you can also text the word welcome to our number here and fill out the welcome card online or scan our QR code. That's just a way for us to connect with you. We're not going to bombard you with messages. You'll get a few emails thanking you for coming. You'll have a gift on the table out here the next time you come. And if you haven't, by the way, if you filled one out, because I found one this morning that I had not gotten, if you filled one out and have not had a gift out there, I will have it for you next week because I found your card this morning. So I'm sorry about that. Put that card in the offering plate, or like I said, fill it out online. And we're just going to give you a Starbucks gift card for coming, honestly. And we just want to connect with you. We won't sell your information. We're not going to spam you with messages. It's just a simple way to get you connected if this is a place that you want to be. So we would love to have you guys do that. I think, everyone, can we just give the Kings a huge round of applause, please? This beautiful couple over here. Saved my life this weekend. And by save my life, I just mean my mental state. Um, they serve in Kids Connect or not Kids Connection, Kids City, and they did it last week, and they're doing it again this week for us, so that we can have Storytellers Sunday with Lauren. So thank you guys so much. I hate to put you on 2 weeks in a row, but I really appreciate you. So if you have any kiddos, make sure that they are signed in the clipboard out there, and the Kings will go ahead and take them. Is that okay? All right. Thank you guys so much. Um, can I have you do? You want to do the offering first, or you want me to do? All right, I'm gonna stop talking for a moment, and I'm gonna have Jim come up here, everybody. This is your
Thank
favorite
you.
liner.
Hi, everyone. So Dan asked me to do this bit of the service and the interview, and I said to him, whatever you do not make me ask for the offering. I hate doing that. It's so awkward. It's so strange. And he said, oh, okay, no problem. And then I got a text this morning at, let's see, 9:34. Can you take the offering? I haven't responded to it because I want him to sweat. But I remember growing up, offering was about, like, if you don't give, you're going to be cursed and you're not going to be blessed. We don't believe that here at the Harvest. We give because we support the work that happens here. That's the reality. Like any other organization that's doing great work in the community, whether it's the Red Cross or the Cat Depot, although it's a little suspect. Apparently it's very palatial over there, from what I've heard. They do quite well in the giving. But we give because we love the work here. And, of course, the Harvest is a really unique body and doing things really not being done in the Christian world. So we give because we want the work to continue on. And that, unfortunately, takes dollars. It is not free to turn the lights on and pay staff to do all the amazing things that they're doing. So that being said, there's lots of ways you can give. Roland can put something up on there. Yep, you can text to give. That's quite easy. It's not a scam. You text, fill out your information one time, and then you just put that dollar amount every week. And if you have fat fingers, however, just be careful, because that could really do you in. You can also give at the giving kiosks over here, cash, check, of course, made out to the Harvest. And you guys can go ahead and pass the buckets. Lord, we just bless the offering that's being given. May it be pressed down and poured back to the people that are giving it. And we want to also say thanks to our outreach team that's going out today. You want to give us a heads up of what you're doing? Come on, Sister Charlene. Charlene and her team are here till like 1 a.m., and now she's going to outreach this afternoon, which means there's going to be an ice bath tonight. And
Good morning, family. We're going out to outreach today. We're going to give the kids some Halloween baskets. And this is our first sign up for the angel tree. So we'll have 2 sign-ups for the angel tree, and then I'm going to start hitting y'all hard for Christmas presents. So when you see me, come and run. So our team's going to go out and bless the children, spend some time with them, give the family some food, give the kids some love. And that's what we do. We give love.
thank you, Charlene. It's amazing work to do. And, of course, today is part of the series of Storytellers Sunday, which, it really came about, number one, because there are so many incredible stories that sit right beside us, and we don't know them. We don't take the time to learn them. So it's a vulnerable thing when people share their stories. It's a little scary to do it, but what a wonderful way to get to know one another and to see what God has done. In the Hebrew, when we grew up, we used to call these testimonies back in the day. We gave our testimony, which is really what Storyteller Sunday is. It is that journey. And in the Hebrew, testimony or testify is the word eduf, which means do it again with power and authority. And that is really what Storyteller Sunday is about, because we hear somebody's journey and we find ourselves, somewhere in that arc of their path. And when we hear it and we see what God has done and somebody shares their story, we're asking God to do that again with power and authority. So Stories are powerful. I'm an English teacher. I believe in the power of narratives and telling stories, and they're changing. In fact, the Bible says that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And so that's what we're hearing today. So, you want to go first, KK?
Well, wait, there's more announcements.
More announcements. Sorry, part two.
You were just doing the financials.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry.
And actually, if I could not go first, that'd be great.
Pardon?
Is that okay if I don't go first?
Yeah, hey, Lauren
You're
can
up,
go
my
first.
friend.
Okay. We should have
So,
blanked out the YouTube of when I was taking up the offering so Dan wouldn't know.
Can y'all tell that at Harvest, like, we're not, like, perfect? That's one. I was telling someone this morning that, like, we were rehearsing, and obviously the stage wasn't completely finished being set up from last night, and so we were kind of hustling and figuring things out. And we started rehearsing late, and I said, I love that, like, it's okay for us not to have a perfect service, that someone's praying and people are like silently scuffling on stage, and like we were just human. We're doing what we do. Okay. Off my tangents. Hi. So we do have some exciting things happening this week and the rest of this month. The first thing, I'm looking at my calendar because I honestly did not write down the announcements this time. It's been a really crazy week. First things first, Thursday is the first meeting of Wild Wonder, which is our new Connect group. I'm so excited for it. Fun fact, Merle called me yesterday about hanging out sometime this week. And I was like, yeah, maybe Thursday night. And she goes, no, not Thursday. I was like, sorry. It's being headed up by our beautiful friend Merle here. And it's just an opportunity to seek God in nature. So if you have felt a connection with nature, or a connection with the divine in creation in some form, that's what this group exists for. And it'll meet starting this Thursday. So this is actually the third Thursday of the month, but after that, it'll be the second Thursday of each month at a different location. The first meeting this week is going to be underneath the oak trees over here where we do Food Truck Sunday, which is another event coming up. And you're gonna bring your chair, bring a journal if you want, bring a pillow if you'd rather sit on a pillow or a blanket, and she's going to lead us into, or you're just going to kind of facilitate, right? We're going to lead ourselves into whatever it is that God has for us in that natural setting. So I hope you guys will sign up for it. There's a Facebook group as well, and Merle's been doing a great job kind of gearing everyone up and preparing our hearts for that. So it's going to be real exciting. And then, so that's Thursday. Then on Saturday, Harvest is going to be at Sarasota Pride. We're really excited for that. We're going to have a booth there all day long. So it goes from 12 to 5 p.m. A booth there. And then the Harvest Band is performing at 12:47. I just remember it being a really weird time.
Exactly, 12:47.
12:47. We have a 15-minute set. Guys, it's going to be fun. We rehearsed for it last Sunday after church, and it's going to be a blast. We're really excited for that. So come out, support us. I know some of you guys have signed up to be booth volunteers. I'll be contacting you this week with more details, I promise. And if you want to be there, if you want to be a part of the booth, if you want to just stop by and say hi, if you want to just support the band as we're playing, please come out. Please connect. It's a beautiful way to connect with your community because there's so many amazing nonprofits and organizations and businesses and just people there. So come out to Pride this Saturday, and that'll be at Boulevard of the Arts. So it's kind of like a large scale between Florida and Lemon, I believe, Florida Lemon Avenue, something like that. And then, so that's the 21st. Then the 22nd is Food Truck Sunday. So again, underneath the oak trees, next Sunday, we're going to have Vesuvio's wood-fired pizza. And guys, they are yummy. I'm so excited for them. They're actually not really a food truck. They have the wood, like, fire machine thing with them. I don't even know what it's called. What's it called? Brick oven. It's an oven. I was here at 2 a.m. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay, leave me alone. But it's gonna be really good. They actually came to our Food Truck Sunday last week. Just the owners did to be a part of it, and I didn't realize it was them. And they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna be here next month." And I was like, "No way!" So they're really sweet people. Come out and see them. And Fine Sugar will be here again with all of her amazing. Y'all sold her out of pumpkin spice last time, and I'll be real honest with you. I was angry. I walked up and I was like, I want one of your pumpkins. She's like, there is no pumpkin. I was like, what do you mean? My inner white girl was, listen, it was bad. Am I allowed to say that? Oh, well, okay, I think that's it, everybody. Have a great time. Here's Tim.
Thank you, KK. Okay, thank you. And that Pride on Saturday, first of all, that is such an honor to be a church asked to come and play at Pride. So we won't give it all away, but I will say we are doing a piece from Sister Act 2, and the inner Corey is his 10-year-old Corey is losing his mind during the Oh Happy Day number. So, pardon? That's just one. We're doing 4 songs. Relax. Will you welcome to the stage Miss Lauren Torres, please? I think it's on. So we're going to try to keep each of these stories to about 17 and a half minutes, give or take 5 seconds, just so we're out at a reasonable time. But this is Lauren Torres, and Lauren and her husband Leo and their 2 kids have been in attendance here for how long?
I think like 2 years.
Okay, 2 years, and have become a real part of the work here. And of course, Lauren's going to tell her story. We're going to do them sort of in 4 parts: upbringing, childhood, first faith encounter, faith crises, which of course I think everyone in this room has walked through, and then where God has brought her to now. And of course, what questions she still has in her walk. Because none of us have it figured out, and that's the beautiful thing about these stories. We're at a new place, but we still wrestle. And what a wonderful group of people to wrestle with in terms of our questions with. So, Lauren, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, how you grew up, where you were raised, and that.
Okay. So I was actually born and raised in Sarasota, Florida. I feel like it's rare to find someone who was raised here. But I was lucky enough to have 2 parents who really loved me. I had a pretty, standard childhood, I would say. My parents went to church every Sunday. But I think for them, at least from my perspective, we weren't super religious outside of church. I always felt growing up that it was like just something that we did every Sunday because if you were a good person, you went to church. But it wasn't like outside of that we were actively involved in church. Growing up, my mom will tell you that I was a very hard-headed, stubborn person. I had lots of questions. I had my own ideas, and I think for me, church, I wasn't ever really into it because it just didn't seem like that type of place. Like it seemed like you went to church, and I always tell the story, to people who have asked me that. I always joke that I was like, who is this old white guy standing up on stage telling everybody what to do and how to think and, what to believe? And that just wasn't me. Since I was very young, I always had my own ideas. I remember very vividly, I was like 7 or 8, and I was sitting in a service, and I don't recall what the pastor had said, but he said something that I didn't agree with or I didn't understand. And I remember so vividly wanting to raise my hand in service and ask questions or understand better what he was saying. But I knew at that age, since a young age, you don't do that at church. You don't ask questions. They tell you what to believe and think, and that's your job. And so, I wasn't ever really into religion or the church. As I got older, my parents sort of took the approach that if we wanted to come, we could, but they didn't force us. And so, again, I would come sometimes because I felt like I was supposed to, but never because I really wanted to be there. So fast forward many years, one of the big sort of turning points in my life is actually moved to New York City. When I graduated high school, I had gone to visit, and I fell in love with the city. I loved the energy and the people. And again, I grew up here, and I grew up in an area where when I was in high school, I didn't have any friends who didn't look like me or think everybody, all of my friends, not purposely, just because I was only around straight white people. That was it. That's all I was exposed to. So being in New York, and there were so many different cultures, so many different people that thought differently from me. I loved that, and I loved the energy. And I remember I had started working in a restaurant It was one of my first jobs while I was in college, and there were a lot of Hispanic people who worked at the restaurant. And there was this one kid, I mean, he must have been in his 20s in particular, who I had made friends with. And he decided to tell me his story. And he told me he was from Mexico. And he told me how he immigrated here. He was illegal. And I mean, he must have, as he was telling me his story, my jaw must have been like on the floor, because he told me this crazy story about how he had, he had come here, I think, through coyotes, and he was in the desert for like days without food and water. And he told me the whole reason why he came here and how he works every day to put aside money just to bring his family over, because he grew up in such a dangerous area. And it just made me realize, so much of when people have differences, when you stand in front of someone and they tell you their story, it's just there's nothing that you can feel except for love and empathy for that person. And it was such a turning point for me, because I quickly then realized, I met my husband actually at that same restaurant. He worked there as well. He actually got me the job. I was there eating lunch with my family, and my mom asked our server, "Are you looking for people to work here? My daughter needs a job." She was trying to drop a hint, and my husband overheard and ran to the manager and said, "Can I get that girl? Can we give that girl a job?" So I met him there as well, and I started to realize, again, I was very ignorant based on my upbringing and just what I had been through. And I started to encounter or hear stories of, them being treated differently. And I saw it. We would go out together, and, because they had accents or because they weren't from here, I mean, it was very clear that I got treated very differently than they did. And so it really sent me on this journey that I started to realize, how important it was that, as I got older, to see different perspectives and to surround myself with people who weren't like me. So, anyways, fast forward a couple years later, my husband and we got pregnant with my son. And I had told him, when we get pregnant, if we're able to, I want to move back close to family. And so we had decided to move back to Sarasota. And we were living with my parents in the beginning because we were looking for a place to stay. And so we started going to church with them on Sundays. And my husband really loved it. I mean, he grew up Catholic. And so when we walked in, and it was, similar to church to this, in that the music was, much more modern. It was fun. People were dancing. He loved that. He didn't grow up in that type of environment from a church perspective. So, and he's an extrovert, so he loves being around people. So he just loved the environment. And so we ended up continuing to go, honestly, because he liked it. And I was fine with it. It wasn't like I disliked church, but I just didn't have a real connection. And we went to Bayside. And so we were there for many years, and we went pretty regularly. And again, it was something that, I was okay with. But I never really felt like my connection spiritually wasn't to religion. Like, if someone would have said, "What's your religion?" I mean, I guess I would have said Christian, but I didn't feel connected to that word. Or even though I didn't know a lot about, what that meant, I didn't feel great about saying I'm a Christian. I would say I was very spiritual at that time. But when COVID happened, we started watching online, and there was a service that it was all the main pastors were on the stage, and they were doing sort of a Q&A style. And we were at my parents' house that day, I remember, and they were having people call in and ask questions. And someone called in and said, "I'm gay, and I want to know if I can have a relationship with God." And as soon as I heard the question, my stomach just like dropped, because even though I'd never experienced in that setting I'd never seen anybody directly, say that wasn't allowed or that they didn't accept it. But I just knew in my gut, and they responded. There was 4 of them, and they went around the circle and basically said, yes, you can, but you have to ask for forgiveness and you have to ask him basically to change you. And I was so angry. I just remember my whole body just filled with like rage because I just couldn't imagine that people were I mean, that is a huge church. There were tons of people there. They were broadcasting it, tons of people watching, and just this person who called in, I could just imagine how that must have felt. Obviously, if you're calling in and asking that question, you're looking for acceptance. You're looking for someone to tell you it's okay. So to be told in front of all these people that it's not, just really, I couldn't get over it. And I talked to my husband about it, and I didn't. What was interesting at that time is if you would have asked me, do you have a close friend or someone in your family or that is gay that you're close to, I would have said no. I mean, I don't. I didn't, to be honest. Not that I knew of, but I had been in so many situations where again people were treated differently for a number of reasons that I just couldn't accept that. And so, even though we would go to that church. By that time, we had my daughter as well. We were comfortable there. My parents went there. We knew a lot of people there. I just decided to say to my husband, I can't go back. I can't support that. And he fully agreed. And to be honest, that probably would have been like the end of religion for me. I could have walked away and been fine. I was spiritual in my own ways. I'm a big introvert, so I find spirituality in other ways. But for him, like I said, he loved the fact of going into church and being a part of a community. And so I decided to do some research and try to see, like, is there a church that is, more openly accepting? And it was a little bit hard because a lot of places use terminology like all are welcome, but and that's sort of the way that church was. They don't explicitly say, well, if you're in this group, you're not welcome here. But so it's like you have to try to find undertones of is everyone accepted exactly as they are? That's a different thing. And so I ended up running across one of Dan's sermons where he was talking about, I think it was one of the first times that he had publicly said, we're going to make a change as a church, and this is what I believe, and if you're on board, you're on board, but if you're not, that's okay. And so I showed it to my husband and said, I want to go and sort of see what it's about, and that's what led us here. And it was such a God moment because we told my parents and they understood that we were leaving the church that they were going to. And they said the same thing. They would ask me questions like, well, do you think that, Jacob is going to be gay? Or like, why are you so passionate about this? And I couldn't tell you. I felt so strongly about this issue. And what was just so crazy is probably a year after we started coming here, we got a call one day, and my husband has an older daughter who lives in New York from a previous relationship, and she called or I think she actually sent a text message and said to her dad and said, I just wanted to let you know that I'm gay, and I'm so sorry. She was like apologizing to him, and he walked over to me and showed it to me, and I just like burst out in like laughter and tears because it felt like I knew exactly why. I mean, not just for her, but it just felt like, I don't know, like God put that on my heart for her, because what's been so incredible is that her mother has had a really hard time with her coming out, and her mother's married to someone who I believe he's Muslim, and he has a really hard time with her. And they were very not accepting and just said some things that were really hurtful to her. And so it's been so incredible that we have been able to be the support system for her that she needs, so that she knows we love her and celebrate her exactly as she is. And we were able to, in that moment, call her, and I think she was a little confused at first because we were like celebrating, and and she's like, are you guys okay? We're like, no, we are so excited that you've had the courage to come out. And say exactly who you are. And so it's been such an incredible experience. And then to be able to also say to her, look, we go to a church. We made this move before we even knew, but we go to a church where you're loved and accepted. And it's been just interesting because from her perspective, I mean, she still struggles with religion and with God because she gets so many messages of hate that's people root in, how could you do this? This is, God isn't going to love you, or, all those things. And so to be able to have someone, to have us to say, no, actually, he loves you exactly as he is. And for me to be able to tell that story, I said to her, there's nothing else that could have been other than a God moment. So it's been so incredible to be able to be a part of this community. And, I love the way that Dan really pushes us, makes us question a lot of things that are, just like standard beliefs, or makes you think differently. And his approach of not saying this is what I think and this is what, you guys should all think, but helping us to kind of learn and think about things ourselves. That is exactly the way that I am. I'm always, if someone tells me what to do or how to think or how to feel, I will, automatically have resistance. But the approach that he takes, I think, is so much more valuable, and that it really makes you think for yourself, which I just love. So we've loved, we've been here ever since, obviously, and we love being a part of this community.
What a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. You know, people ask Dan, and then KK, of course, said this morning why we always say clarity is kindness here. And I think about, like Leo's daughter, anyone that comes from any marginalized community that is brave enough to walk through these doors. Why would we make them sit through a whole service before they find out they're safe? Why would we make them sit through the worship service? That fear and that fear of judgment. And that's why I always say to Dan, because sometimes he forgets because he's Dan. And I'm like, Dan, because someone walked in that door, why would we make them wait 20 minutes or 30 more minutes of being scared or uncomfortable or what have you when you can just say it? 100% loved, affirmed, and safe here for real. I mean, we have that sign on the outside that says, we love without the fine print. There's a lot of loving that takes place in religious circles with fine print. I mean, that contract is long. You know those contracts I'm talking about. We don't read, we just sign the bottom of it. But that's part of that reason. So when people walk through those doors, they know immediately. This is not, we don't play games with that here. So thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Leo, for allowing that. We welcome KK. I don't know if you know her, KK. She's all right. Actually, she's pretty awesome. And KK did warn me. That the story gets heavy pretty quickly. So, but it does get better. So it's a pretty incredible story that KK is going to share. So KK, why don't you just start, like Lauren did, how you grew up, where you had your first faith experience, at what point did you have a crisis in your faith, and where you're at today, besides here.
I love that. I may not remember all the questions in order, so if I pause, just ask me the question that I'm
No,
supposed
it's
to answer
fine.
next.
Lauren was like a train down the track. I just started it, and she just went. Made my life so much easier.
Well, yeah, as Jim said, my story does get heavy fast, but it doesn't stay that way. So I guess that's just sort of a trigger warning for anyone in the room that may not be able to deal with talk about abuse or anything like that. But I was born and raised in Panama City, Florida. So in the Panhandle, Bay County, 850 strong. And I grew up with my mom and my brother, who is autistic. And my grandma was always nearby. If she wasn't there was a few times she lived with us, which was not a great idea. But she was always either next door or a couple of houses down or right down the road. And that was my family. It was just those three people. My mom and my dad divorced when I was 4, and my dad moved away to Malaysia. He converted to the Muslim faith, and here's where it gets heavy. He told my mom before he left that one day he was going to come back to the States and kidnap me and take me to Malaysia and sell me into trafficking. And so, growing up, for very good reason, because up until that point he was not a good he's not a good person. Honestly, my mom had many situations up till that threat to take the threat serious, and he did actually try to come a few times. So I was raised pretty protected, but it was a bad time to be raised protected because I grew up in the 90s and 2000s when the internet was booming. And so all my friends start to get these MySpace accounts and they're playing Farmville online and, and making YouTube videos. And I was not allowed to do any of that. And my mom was she was always honest, but not too honest, if that makes sense, because I was a child. I could only process what I could process. So it was kind of like little by little when she felt like I was old enough, she'd give me another piece of information. But I never got the full story, and so I always questioned, and I was very rebellious, guys. I had a MySpace and I had a YouTube account. I did not play Farmville though. Um, but I knew my dad was dangerous. I knew the protocol. If I knew what he looked like. If I ever saw him, I'd find a safe adult. If there was no safe adult, I'd find a hiding space. I knew call 911, find a brick phone. I knew the protocol. But I never liked it or quite got it, and it made me spiteful towards my mother. Honestly, I thought that a lot of what she was doing was unnecessary, and some of it may have been, but it was all for my safety, and I just didn't quite process that till I was older. That's my childhood.
And talk about your faith upbringing. What did that look like in the early years? And then take us to, a crisis that you had in your faith journey.
You want faith or church? Because I feel like those are a little different for me.
Whatever you, yes, whatever.
Okay, I'll do so I've always been the very outgoing, everyone's my friend kind of person. So
Everyone's her best friend.
not, well,
Not
maybe
just friend.
everyone's a close friend. Definitely. So I was in high school. I was that kid that and maybe you knew this kid, and maybe they annoyed the mess out of you, and for that I'm sorry. But in the cafeteria, there's like the cliques, like there's the cheerleaders and the band people, and I walked to each table throughout lunch. All the time, I had friends at every table, and I would interrupt lunch in a heartbeat and sit down and make new friends. And I made a friend in middle school named Brenna, and Brenna invited me to her church. And up until this point, so soon, I'll rewind a little bit. Soon after my mom and my dad divorced, my mom got involved in a church, and being a single mom with two kids, one of which had autism, was disabled, she was not able to afford a lot of things, and so she could not pay tithes. But she did offer to tithe her time and her energy and her talents, which this has always been a weird talent to me, but now that I'm an adult, I get it. My mom's a really talented, efficient cleaner. She cleans really well. It's just something she loves to do. Sorry, I'm getting dry mouth. So she offered to clean the church every Sunday after church, instead of tithing, because they didn't have a maintenance person. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. We totally get that. That's great. There came a point where I told her, and I was probably 6 or 7, I told her about the abuse I'd endured before my father left. He had sexually abused me as a toddler, and I had the courage to finally say something about it. And she got me in counseling immediately, which was one of the best things she did, especially at that time. But the only time the counselor could see me was Sunday afternoons. And so she had to tell the church that she couldn't clean Sunday afternoons anymore because she had to take her daughter to counseling. And they said, well, then why are you here? Don't, if you can't give anything, then why, like, what's the point of coming? You have to, if you're not going to be involved, like, you're not contributing. So we stopped going to church altogether. We visited every once in a while. We would kind of visit random churches, but we never stayed anywhere. I never had a church home again. Um, and I loved the church we were at before they did that. So it was really hard for me. So when I not really going to church, but having Bible studies at home and listening to Adventures in Odyssey. Anybody else, Mr. Mr. Whitaker and Eugene Nelson and all that, or Melsner? I don't know. Anyways, focus. I I grew up with God and the Bible always in the home, but I always yearned for that church experience again. And so when I met my friend Brenna in middle school, she invited me to her church, and she was Lutheran, and I was like, yes, I want to go. And her family was amazing. They offered to pick me up every Sunday, and I went, and it wasn't my thing. They're very traditional, but the people were great. I loved the youth group, and I was meeting new people, and I was the girl who liked to meet new people. So it was just a time for me to be there and be back in church and kind of have a church home, even though I didn't quite feel like it was home. And then eventually, a friend from that Lutheran youth group decided to switch to a Baptist church, and I followed them there. And I found that I liked the Baptist church better. I felt more connected there. And I jumped in head first, feet first, whatever the saying is. I went all in with volunteering and interning, and I was leading Bible studies, and I was a part of the tech team and the worship team and I didn't like kids at the time, the youth group, and and I did the mission pastor was like my best friend, and I there was I jumped all in and I got really involved, and I ended up being on staff there for a very long time. They helped me go back to college and get my degree, and I'm forever grateful for that. But even within that, there was always little power plays. I don't really know how to describe it without telling the whole story, and we don't have time for whole stories. But there were you guys know there were issues all throughout it with if you don't do this, then we're not going to fund your school anymore. If like it, lots of that. Yes, lots of those types of things. But that was my experience with church and faith, because I did connect a lot with people and with Jesus in that space. I think my first connection with Holy Spirit and faith, though, for me was, has anyone else had a parent who you're driving on the road and there's some piece of furniture or something sitting out by someone's mailbox, and they turn around, they have to pick it up? That was my mom.
I'm
That is
married
my
to that
mom.
person, actually. I hope she's not watching.
That is my mother. And I always hated it, except for one time. We were driving by and we saw pieces of a trampoline sitting out, all disassembled, or disassembled, is that the word? Disassembled. I was here at 2 a.m. I'm going to keep reminding you guys that when I mess up. All disassembled next to someone's mailbox or whatever, ready to be thrown out. And they had a brand new one in their backyard, you could see. And we grabbed it, and there was one little tiny hole in it, somewhere. It wasn't a big deal, and we set it up, and it was a full set. So I had a trampoline. And there was one evening where I decided, kind of right at dusk, we had a lot of pine trees in our backyard at this time. We moved around in Panama City, but this house had lots of pine trees. And right around the time sun setting, I put on Way FM, which was my church, my Christian radio station at that time. The song More by Matthew West came out, was playing. I love you more than the sun and the stars. And that it was on, and I went out there and I jumped on the trampoline, and then the words started hitting me, and I just laid there and looked up at the sky and saw all the trees. I'm getting emotional thinking about it because it's just so beautiful. And I remember connecting in that moment really with who God was and how much He loved me and how beautiful creation was. And I think that was my first faith moment. And then it just from there, all the church stuff happened, and I got really involved.
I mean, what as you tell that story, what a difference between like the transactionalism of religion, or that experience of like everything is measured out. You do a certain amount, you get a certain amount back. I mean, it's like as opposed to that faith experience, which is just completely, just the love of God with no transaction involved except a kid jumping on the trampoline, and God just does what he does in such a beautiful way, which is, I think, really, a difference between traditional church sometimes and the experience of the divine. And so, why and how did you end up here?
Well, and I'll tag on real quick. After that trampoline experience, I realized I connected with God best in nature, and so a lot of times my prayer time was just sitting outside at night under the stars, or when I was able to drive, I would drive. I've lived in Panama City, so the beaches there are way better than here, y'all. I'm just gonna say that right now.
All right, this is over. We're done now.
No. We just drive out to the beach or to a bay or wherever I could find water, the marina sometimes, and just sit and hear the waves and look at the sky and connect with God. So that's always kind of been my faith experience, is connecting in nature, which is why I'm excited for Wild Wonder on Thursday at 6 p.m. out there under the oak trees. But I ended up here because my husband made me move. No, I'm just kidding. Roland, don't boo me. Is it because of
the beach
it
comment?
was the beach
Yeah,
comment?
take
Go
our
to Panama
beaches
City, come back
seriously
here and tell me different. That's all I gotta say. Well, anyways, so I went off to college, like I said, my church, and honestly, just the community of people that I had forced to be my friend at that moment and forced to connect with all throughout my years. They loved me enough to help me go to college, and we'll fight about this later, Roland. It says I've been there. You are wrong. We're gonna fight about it later. They between scholarships and FAFSA and student loans and all the things, I also had a lot of people just like, I'll pay for your food every semester, or I'll pay your dorm fee every semester, and my church said I'll pay whatever everything else doesn't cover, and so I was able to get my degree, and I went to Alabama, y'all. I did not want to go to Alabama, I'm not going to lie. But I actually fell in love. We were in Mobile, Alabama, and I fell in love with Mobile. My husband hates Mobile, but I love it. I love going back. But that's where I met Sam, who's back there at the booth now. Everyone wave and say hi. Someone told me yesterday as I was running around event-wise, this was not weird at all, because it sounds weird, but I promise it wasn't weird. He stopped me and he goes, listen, I'm married, I'm not hitting on you, but you're wife material. And I said, tell my husband that. So tell my husband that. Just kidding.
She's wife material. Sam.
He's great. I appreciate you, Sam. But we met there. I graduated a semester before him. Roland said, run. Go away. I graduated a semester before him. And but I stayed in Mobile and was working full-time while we were still dating. And COVID hit. And we were told that there was 2 weeks off for me for work and 2 weeks off of him for school to get over COVID. And I was like, 2-week vacation? I'm gonna go to the Panhandle. I'm gonna hang out with my people. So he lived in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, which wasn't too far from Panama City. So I was like, I'm gonna go visit my boyfriend's family, and I got stuck there. As you all know, how quarantine happened. He Did you propose before quarantine? Oh wait, he was my fiance at the time. My bad. He proposed, so we were engaged. We had started planning our wedding, and obviously COVID completely messed that up. Well, no, for the better. Our wedding was great, but it was just the plan was messed up. The original plan was not there. But we were stuck in a house, and for the first time in a long time, I was forced out of the Christian bubble. And we would watch his parents' church online, and I never really their church was fine, but it wasn't my church back in Panama City, and it wasn't what I really wanted to experience, and it was weird online, and then the and then George Floyd was murdered. And quarantine forced you to go on social media more than usual. And the way that I saw people who had cared about me as a person of color in the church reacting to this black man's murder, um, it was eye opening. And it was also, I was wrestling with a lot because I was like, I don't agree with what just happened, but I'm a Christian and it seems like all the Christians are saying this, so am I supposed to say this? But it was just this weird dichotomy of like of yeah, it really was a faith crisis. And on top of that, there was all kinds of human rights stuff happening that year, guys. The mask thing, in which there was the vaccine. There was just a lot of division and arguments and politics. I never cared about politics until COVID, honestly. I started learning a lot about politics because I was forced to on social media, which I'm glad I know now because I'm more informed. But it was a lot. And so that kind of started my questioning of things. And then Sam um, got a job here, and COVID was kind of trickling out. Things were opening back up. We're allowed to try to live again, and we decided to try to live in Sarasota because he got a job here, so why not? We got married in the backyard of his parents' house during quarantine, and we were kind of stuck there, so we're like, it's time for us to start our lives. So we came here, and I started working for a very prominent Christian organization. I just want to be careful, in town, and he was working at the school that he was employed at, and being back in the Christian environment, I started seeing more things and hearing more things. There was um, a lot of racial discrimination in my office. There was a lot of, um, just a lot. There's just a lot. I could tell you stories, but we won't. I guess we won't go into all that. We don't have a lot of time. Um, but in that, it helped me ask more questions. Like at some point while I was in the office, something came up about women being submissive. And so I was like, yeah, I've been taught that too, but like, wasn't Deborah a priestess, like a prophetess? Like, like Esther was a queen, so she was in some sort of like leadership, right? And in asking those questions, I started digging into other understandings, which I didn't know existed in the Christian faith, that other understandings of these things could exist. And it just opened up more and more and more. And there came a point where we decided to try church again. And in trying church again, we kind of hopped around to some different churches around here, and nothing really ever felt right. It was very obvious that I was stared at as the only brown girl in the room a lot of times, honestly. And I'd never noticed that before I kind of just jumped in and made everyone my friend. I think that there's kind of beauty in that ignorance that I had before, but there's also a lot of, once I realized the racial implications, I'm recognizing I used to say I've never experienced racism, and I have. It's like once I had my eyes opened, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what that was. When that person said I couldn't date her son because she doesn't agree with, it was because I was brown. It was like all kinds of things in the church that I'd grown up with that I guess I disassociated from. And so getting back in church in Sarasota didn't feel right, so we kind of just stopped going. At that point, I was also done with church because I was in the Christian environment again. I was coming home every day with like angry stories to my husband. He was getting sick and tired of hearing it, and I was just we were just sick and tired. We're like, we're not doing this anymore. On top of all that, my best friend, who I've known, one of my best friends, who I've known.
One of 10,000 best friends.
I don't have 10,000. I have a few. One of my best friends, I've known her since fourth grade. She had been dealing with infertility for years. Her and her husband had been trying to get pregnant. And even from fourth grade, vividly remember, 2 a.m. Vividly remember being on the playground, wanting to play house, and she was always the mom. Always, always. She had an, or she has a innate desire to mother. And watching her go through infertility for years and like kind of walking alongside her, hold on, and learning what what it was like, and how it was affecting her, and just the ignorance of like some of the things people would say and some of the things I said honestly. Um, it hurt me. And there was a point where she's doing IVF, or she's trying to adopt. She's doing IVF. There was a bunch of things happening, but she was going through in vitro, and she had lost some of the embryos. My brain is not computing, guys. There was one that stuck, and she officially had a pregnancy like test, like numerous positive pregnancy tests, and I believe it was a month or a month and a half. We're just calling, at least every week, if not every day, or texting it all the time. How are you doing? What's going on? What do you need? Like, and she's like, I'm trying not to get too excited, but I'm getting really excited. This is the farthest I've gone. We're so excited, and it's getting great. And then I get a call that she lost the baby. And when I tell you, am I allowed to say the P word for angry?
Yes.
When I tell you I was pissed at God, I was so I drove home from that call with her, and I said, all right, Laura, I just told Victoria I'm gonna pray for her. So what's the point? You're not even, I've been praying for years. You're not listening. Like, what? You finally let her get pregnant, and then I was so angry. And I didn't pray for months, really. I didn't even care to know anything else about God. I didn't want to seek. I was sick and tired of my job at that point, because I was hearing about God every single day, and I was hearing all of this all these rude judgmental things associated with God, and I was just mad. So I didn't want to go to church ever again. I was really just sick and tired of church. Um,
Let's bring this one home.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
I'm coming.
Nope.
I'm coming. Here we go. I decided randomly one day to Google. I don't even know what I Googled. Was it progressive church or something like that? I don't know. Or no, I was on Spotify. I don't know. I found the Spotify podcast of one of Dan's sermons, and he, when we were back over there, he was talking about a trans woman who had taken communion for the first time in 20 years after transitioning, and how she bawled at the fact that she was given the opportunity to connect with God in this special sacred thing that she'd always really appreciated, but it'd been 20 years. She was never allowed to. She said, I've gone to church, they've taken communion, I was always passed over, told I wasn't allowed to. Um, and I heard his sermon about, I think it was right around the time that we wanted, that Harvest was becoming more, or outwardly saying we're affirming and accepting, and I was like, okay, what is this place? And then at the end of it, he goes, guys, we're going to change Sarasota, Florida, or something like that. And I was like, we're in Sarasota. This church is here. And so I hesitantly sent the podcast to Sam, and Sam was like, yeah, let's try it. And I was like, okay, I thought he was going to think I was crazy, but I guess we're doing this. And I walked into Harvest, and there was a lesbian couple right up front. I don't know their names. I've seen them a couple times before. I don't really know. At the time I was visiting, but they were up front. They had 2 young children with them, and they were during worship dancing, singing, raising their hands, just together as a family worshiping God. And I remember Sam and I both kind of looked at each other like, we don't know how to feel about this, because we were always taught this wasn't okay, but also, how do I deny this family this connection with God? Like, I can't. So I was still in kind of honestly a homophobic mindset, because that's what I'd been raised on, but it was just eye-opening in recognizing that there was more. And one Sunday, I think I visited 3 times, Dan walked up and said, you sing, right? I said, no, who told you that? Who told you that?
We can always spot them.
I was like, you don't even know me. I don't know what. And I was like, yeah, I guess I do.
Somebody
and
walks in the door and I'm like, he's a musician. Dan's like, oh, definitely.
I was like, whatever. So, and then I joined the worship team, and he hasn't let me leave. So, um, that's how I've ended up at Harvest. And I guess in learning and growing and asking questions, I think I know the last question is, what questions do you still have? And the one question I still have is, what else? Like, what else is there? What else did I learn incorrectly, or what else has a different perspective than what I was taught, or what else is actually for me? What have I been claiming for myself that's not for me? What else? So I'm done now. I'll stop talking, guys. That's my story.
Can you please give KK a round of applause? Thank you for sharing your story. No, it was beautiful. I thought it was really wonderful today when she chose to sing before and after. And I just thought it was so perfect for Storytellers Sunday. And I love that sentiment she ends with, what else? What else don't we know? And so to come to our faith with humility, I think is so critical. We fall so short. We know so little. We use terms about God all the time, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. We don't really understand what that means. When I was little, we always heard, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And so I thought that meant we had to literally fear him, like tremble. And then as the older I got, I realized that phrase really means like not fear, but like our limited capacity to understand God. When we understand how limited our understanding of God is, that's wisdom stems out of the humble place. Wisdom stems out of the lowest place. And what else? What else can we learn together? What other questions do we have? And so, Lauren and KK, thank you for sharing your stories with us today. And that's about it. So I just want to say, I bless you. I hope you have a wonderful, blessed week. And when Dan comes back next Sunday, let's shun him a little bit. And it's a good idea, but we love you. Thank you for being part of this family and this church. And God bless you. Have a wonderful week.